Welcome to Hair Heroes. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you know, Hair Heroes is now growing into this amazing series of shows with the greatest hairdressers in the world who share their story with us. I wanted to learn from the greatest. I wanted to dive into their minds and share it with you today so that it would inspire you, give you hope, give you direction, and guide you on your way. Because within every single one of us, there is a magic, there is a light. And if I can help with my amazing guests open that door to the infinite possibilities and to your creativity, then all of this is so worthwhile. Akin Konizi, as you saw from our opening video, is an extraordinary hairdresser. And you're going to not only understand more about how he thinks and why he's successful, you'll understand the thought process behind his amazing original creations. This gentleman has won so many awards, but the one that I think is worth speaking about is the fact that he's won the British Hairdresser of the Year, which is a nominated entry. Not everyone gets to participate in that. So it's the greatest of the greatest British hairdressers that get to play in that arena. And he has won this 4 times. That is huge. So you're going to see what it's like to be so successful. He, with his partners, created Hob salons and academies. So we'll explore what that world is all about. So without any more of me, let's bring on this really extraordinary man that's not only clever, but an absolute sweetheart. Hello.
Hi, Vivian. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited about this.
I get so excited because it's like, wow, this is a dream come true to spend time with you, to dive into your mind and the creative process. So thank you so much for being here today. And I want people to get to know more about how you think. So the first thing I'd like to do is just explore a little bit about your background so we can bring people up to speed with your humble days to where you are when you joined Hob, and we'll carry on from there. So how did it begin for you?
It began in 79 when I just literally ran out of school. I hated school. I was not very academic in my last few years. I became very creative, and I went to a very strict school. It was the last grammar school in London, and the pressure was immense. So I just wanted to get away and deal with my hands and people. So I worked in my father's dry cleaners from about the age of 5 or 6. And I was a little Hoffman presser, pressing clothes and dealing with customers and dealing with staff. And for me, it was quite natural to want to deal with the public. But at the same time, I had this love of fashion, love of clothes, love of cloth, and working with it. So I really wanted to be a fashion designer. And at that age, I was already like a little rockabilly. I was 16 years old, and I had this massive quiff, and I was wearing old men's clothes and these big baggy trousers with them up to here. And I was really into it. And then, unfortunately, my bubble was burst, because the more I found out about being a fashion designer at that time, the more people were scaring me that there were so many fashion designers that were on the breadline and not really making it. And of course, I didn't have the kind of role models that would say, doesn't matter, you just go for it and you'll get through. I didn't have any of that. So unfortunately, I gave up my position at the London College of Fashion and rethought what I was going to do. So it was a time when hairdressing was very much changing. It was a time when there were brown hairdressing salons, which were for your auntie kind of thing, and then there were barbers. And what was happening was unisex. I kind of grew up in my auntie's hairdressing salon smelling lacquer and hairpins and rollers, and then all of a sudden this salon opened up that my cousins had opened in Hackney, which was the heart of kind of London at the time. And it was white and red, and there were young people, and there was music, and it was great. And I thought, what is this? This isn't like a salon that I know. And I kind of fell in love with it. I went there for a few days, and I thought, well, this is kind of what I want. There are public, there are people that are teams, there are creativity, there was hair work and fashion. And I really thought that was for me. Yeah. So I found out where they did their hairdressing education. They did a course at Allen International. Now, Allen International at the time, in the mid-70s to 80s, were quite a big established 3-4 schools, 25 salons, I think. And they were like a spin-off of Sassoon's. So they were really doing it right. And there was a guy there called John Rawson, who I absolutely idolized. You know, he was an incredible hairdresser. He worked with Sassoon's and Mark and that lot. So they were at the cutting edge, Al International. So I really wanted to become an educator. I really enjoyed that, watching that. So I was lucky enough to get the best education because I was in one of their academies, and I worked hard. So I was there doing an apprenticeship, and then after that, I went and got lots of experience working in lots of different salons, from West End salons to local salons, and wanted to gain experience. I was kind of quite a wise kid. I didn't want to be stuck in one place for the next 30, 40 years or whatever it was I thought, but that was me. I mean, it's not something that I wouldn't suggest to other people. But for me, it wouldn't work. I needed to know as much as I could as quick as possible, so that I could get back into education. And then I was about 22, 23 years old, working in Covent Garden, which is the heart of the West End. And to be honest, I wasn't really enjoying it that much. Unfortunately, how much you enjoy your work depends on who you work with.
Yes.
And lovely boss, but a bit of a maniac. And kind of started to put me off of hairdressing a little bit. And I decided to do a little bit of freelancing, and I was kind of rolling in and out of hairdressing. And what happened is that my two partners, Clive and Paul, they called me up because they'd heard about me through somebody that I'd worked with and said, why don't you come and work with us in our new salon in Mill Hill, which was out in the suburbs. Right? These two gentlemen here who haven't changed one bit. So I said, okay, nothing to lose. I'll go out for the interview. So I drive to this salon they've got in Mill Hill, which I'd never heard of. It was out in the suburbs because I was pretty much a West End boy. And I loved it. They pretty much had this team feeling and this hunger to really succeed. And I started working there. I worked for them for about 3 years. And then decided to go off and do my own thing because, again, I was getting those itchy feet and I wanted to have my own salon. I wanted it to be how I want it to be. I wanted it to be black and white and wood and big balls and that. So I was very, very headstrong about what I wanted. And so I did that for about 3 or 4 years and hated that. That was really hard. That was really hard being on my own. And so we decided to get back together again, me, Clive and Paul, because they missed me and I missed them. And so I went back to them, bought into the couple of salons that they'd since opened, and we've been growing ever since. And we've developed from that into, as I say, 23 4 salons, I think it is, 2 academies, an apprentice academy, and haven't really looked back.
No.
And we've been together 33 years, 34 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And what I like about what you've shared with us is the importance of being at the right place, because
Right time.
you were always doing hair,
Yeah.
you were always doing you, and yet the wrong fit. And so many people would quit in those circumstances, but you had the courage to go off on your own and then realize, oh, this is not right. You explored the more of the rural area, went out into the suburbs, you came back into the city, and you wouldn't settle until you found the right place, which is a big part of your success today, because there's no resentment, because you're doing what you want to do. So that's a big message to everyone listening today, to be at the right place, isn't it?
The big message is you will not end up in the right place by luck. You've got to go and find it. You've got to go and find the luck. You know, I didn't end up working in the West End at the best salon that I thought, or the best academy in London, by luck. No. I asked around. I found out. I know a lot of people want to work, you know, at the nearest salon where it's easy to get to. Where, you know, you need to find out if that salon, nothing wrong with a local salon, but find out if they're the best in the street. And if they're not, then find out, you know, who is.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the right place and be brave enough that if it isn't working out, to start again.
Yeah.
But I say all of that, and I am grateful that I am blessed to have found my vocation, and I knew it within one day of being in the salon. Within one day of being in that salon, I knew that I was destined to be a hairdresser, and it was the perfect fit for me. Yeah. I loved sweeping. I loved folding towels. I loved watching. I loved plaiting. I love talking to people. So you need to be doing something that you love to do if you really want to be good at it.
Yeah, and I love what you said in a previous interview, because we did our first interview in 2010, and I remember you saying that if all you're doing is sweeping hair every day and you don't learn and grow, then all you are is cheap labor. But if every day when you're sweeping hair, you're learning something new, then you're growing and you're going to move beyond in something powerful in your career. That is an incredible statement that I think we should all embrace. The question I have for you here is, how does it feel to have won the British Hairdressing Awards 4 times?
I've been asked that question a lot of times, and it's a difficult question to answer, because I feel it's just a part of the journey. I don't feel like it's 4 times. I feel like it's ongoing. I feel like it's just part of that journey. So having won it and then winning it again is just kind of like, oh, thanks. I'm glad that I'm still good enough to be honoured with that title, as opposed to, wow, I've won it, it's mine, I'm the best. You know, I'm not that. I am more like, oh, good, I'm still good enough, I'm still good. As opposed to it being a destination. It's never been a destination for me. You know, success and mastery for me is a journey. It's always a journey, and I'm afraid that I'm one of those people that will never be kind of content or satisfied with whatever I'm at that time. I have to be learning something and developing weekly, daily, monthly, yearly.
So with that in mind, I mean, obviously you've won the London, you've won many awards, but we just sort of focused on the British Hairdresser of the Year award, which was a 4-time one, which is so hard to achieve, guys. How has that changed your thinking from winning all the awards that you have won? Has it changed your thinking?
It's definitely done me as a person a lot of good, because, you know, I don't know how people are, but I never really quite am sure if I'm good enough. And so as a youngster, from about the age of about 11, 12, the insecurity started coming in. I went to a school that was full of geniuses, and then wasn't sure if I was as clever as I used to be or as good as I used to be. And I think that we all carry that kind of insecurity and fear in us to some degree. I tend to use that as a fuel to help me to develop. And I won Eastern Hairdresser of the Year in 2001, I think it was. Jake, 2001. I think that was the first thing I'd ever won, except for this volleyball competition when I was about 12. And that for me was like, wow, I could actually win something, because I always thought before that I was jinxed. So I won 2001, and then in 2005, winning London absolutely transformed me as a person. I couldn't believe that I could win London, because before that I always thought, my confidence as in my craft has always been the same. And I'll get onto that in a minute, because I don't want to come across until you get to know me a little bit better, but I always feel that I am not the best, but I'm the best that I can be. So having won London was like, oh my God, maybe somebody else thinks that too. And it was a surprise to me, and it was a shock that it was actually recognized, because until that point, I felt like I was living in a bubble of this confidence that often was called arrogance. And I couldn't quite work out what was wrong with this arrogance that everyone kept telling me about. And what it was I believe that arrogance potentially was me being so passionate and focused on being successful and convincing myself that I was good enough and was good. So once I started winning awards, it was like, well, actually, I can calm down a little bit, because I don't have to prove it to everybody anymore. It seems that they might agree, a few of them. And that kind of drive is what keeps me going, which is what I'm saying. I won't be complacent in the fact that, well, I'm good enough and that's it. I've got my titles. And no, I think that you need to continue your journey.
Yes. So when we look at this image here, I think this really shows such an incredible diversity of skill, and obviously the precision of this exquisite little bob line with the layers and this unbelievable wave. And I remember when I first saw this wave, it was like, this guy can control and manipulate hair. It's like you're sculpting the fabric and it is obeying you. This diversity of skill, talk to me about this. What's going on in your mind? And did you find that as hard as I know that is to do? For me, that would be very hard to do.
When I was a junior, every spare moment I had, I was on the block. And I was either doing perming to get my skill up, or actually my speed up. It was 23 minutes was my record. I was plaiting, which was my first love. I was doing like 50, 60 stem plaits. I was like 17, 18, because I was under a lady called Ros Hyman, which was the god of long hair for me. And finger waving, which was, again, one of my passions. So those three things. The cutting side of things I wasn't as into at first, but the finger waving thing, I would be finger waving till my fingers were bleeding. So that was great. And so then it disappeared for many years, like since, from my being a junior to 20 years later, 25 years later this was, I thought I'd start working, bringing it back again. And it really was nowhere near coming back into fashion at that time. And I do believe that was quite an unexpected look. And it wasn't that difficult for me to do. And I thought, you know what? I need to show all of my skills that I have, because after a period, I'd become known as just a cutter, whereas actually I was pretty good with long hair, but didn't get the time for it.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this: is this a wet finger wave set?
Yes, it was wet, no gel and no help from any of that. It was just like proper hard way of doing it, wet only.
And then did you clamp the wave, the crest of the wave? No, you didn't. That is just pushed in with your fingers.
That I found as a great way of helping things along a few years later. But before that, no.
And what was the length of her hair?
Well, there's another picture of her with that in a bob. So what I did was I continued that. So for the second look for the shoot, we tonged the ends and kept the wave through the top. But it's actually a really beautiful look where it's very triangular, very wide, but with curls through, soft curls and waves just through the top area. So
you then took her own hair and then did you pin that in there? Yeah, you did. Okay. And then talk to me about this absolutely gorgeous bob.
that's probably one of the most difficult haircuts and challenging haircuts I've ever done in my life. To keep the slimness, to keep that shape. You know, I love this haircut. Always love it. I've tried it a few times since, and you know what? It hasn't worked as well as that. And sometimes you just get the right head of hair with the right hair, right size of head, and it works that well. But you know, for me, that's one of my favourites.
Is it tucked or is it cut behind her ear?
All cut round. Cut round. Short layers through the sides. Short layers through the sides. Disconnected through that front area. Bob at the back, a little bit longer. Wonderful hair.
Incredible.
I mean, the photographer, I used to work with Jenny Haynes until just a few years ago, and we developed this relationship where she so much enhanced the visual imagery of my looks and got across what it was I wanted to have. She really listened to what I wanted, and I was really directed by her as well to get that across the best way I could. And that was, again, through Jenny telling me, Akin, you've done that, now get a second look. We're here anyway, you've paid the model, you've paid me, second look, try it out, see what happens. So that was something that I always did after that.
I love it.
Did a second look, always.
And I love how in this layered haircut, how you skinny down the shape, the narrowness of it. And I love the fact that the bob line is so strong with the soft diffusion in the front and then the little bit of relaxation at the crown. So talk to me about how you did this.
The one on the left with the eyes closed, that again was a second look. The first look was very geometric, almost like a little bob, pushed across, and it was okay. And then Jenny's like, no, take her away, get a second look. And then we did that, and I thought, wow, you know, we were all wowed away by this look. And it was a very, very popular look. I can't remember what year that was, 2013, maybe 14. And it was a time when we didn't cover people's eyes. We didn't cover models' eyes because how are they going to see? But, you know, that was one of my favorites.
Well, I feel as though you were one of the first ones also to really play around with, say, for example, you cut the hair from left to right in a sweep, brush it the opposite direction for the finishing of doing these super low partings and sweeping across. I feel as though you were the first one to do that.
Yeah. You know, we always feel that ourselves are often we're the first ones to do things, but it's happening somewhere else simultaneously on the planet, hopefully. But it is happening. But I feel that we did start that because what I kept finding was, as a hairdresser, it was very controlled, the finished look, and then you throw it to the other side and it looked better. And that for me was a side of my creativity, which I call slightly schizophrenia. And it's where I come out of my comfort zones. It's where I come out of being Akin, and this hands take over, this schizophrenic kind of other side of me comes in, throws something else in and says to me, there you go, hairdresser, how much better does that look? And I'm like, well, you know what, you're right. So I play with it. And often it works when you throw it to the other side, and it takes literally a few minutes. So you'll try it.
Yeah. And I love also the boldness to be extreme in the length. And it doesn't always work because sometimes when you have very high fringe and very strong elongated length, sometimes it can go horribly wrong, but you always seem to know how to balance it. And you said something very important about the size of the head and obviously who is wearing it, of course, and knowing when you can push. And knowing within yourself, no, step back, stop. That's a really good idea. She's not the one for that, right? You seem to take that risk and you get away with it very well.
Well, you hit the right nail. It is a risk. I don't skimp on spending 5-10% of the time that you spend on a hairstyle taking risks and trying things out. The one you're talking about on the right with the long hair, I mean, wow. I mean, you asked me to pull out 20 of my favorite pictures. It took me about 3 days to do that because I had about 60 and to whittle them down. But these were my absolute favorites. And this girl went on to be a top model. She was wonderful. But it's not about the hairstyle. It's about finding the shape that makes that model look wow. And if you can put a risque high fashion look onto somebody that not everybody can get away with, then what you're basically saying is, look at this girl, she looks this good, even though her fringe is up the top of her head. And that's what fashion is. Fashion is saying, look at me, I can have something this strong, this different, and I look amazing. And that's what most fashionistas are aiming towards. You know, you wear a really tight pair of skinny jeans, or wear a very baggy pair of flares, or a very tall hat, or a beard, or you're saying, I can get away with this look because I look this good. And then everybody else follows and hopes they can look as good as you. But you have to find the right person for that. And the only way you can do that is by using your eyes.
Yeah.
Okay? You can't do it by using your hands and just using technique. You have got to look at somebody and look for the beauty. And when you hit the beauty, bang, that's where you capture it. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And that's what we sell as hairdressers, the optimum look to make somebody look wow.
What I'm hearing here in America, and tell me if it's happening in the UK, I'm hearing from salon owners, a lot of my kids are really nervous to cut hair short. There's this growing trend of the fear of cutting hair short because they built this wonderful long hair clientele with a lot of long hair color techniques, which are fantastic, but they have now lost touch with doing very short hairstyles. What would you say to those people who are, well, I'm watching you, Viv and Akin, well, I'm watching you today, but I'm scared to cut hair short. What would you say to them?
Viv, I think this long hair trend is very, very dangerous. We had it in the mid-70s, and then it got longer. It got down to the base of the spine, to the bottom, grow your hair down to your bottom. Unfortunately, the attraction of it is the young girls, 14, 15, 16-year-olds, they've always pretty much historically had long hair. And then at about 14, 15, they get a fringe cut in without telling their mum. And then they grow it back out again. And then they start getting towards grown-up hairstyles. But every young girl wants to be a princess, and every young girl wants to be a mermaid. But not everybody with long hair looks like a princess or a mermaid. But fashion makes you think you do. It's like me, I think I look great in skinny jeans. Well, I don't. You know, I do much better to have slightly baggy jeans. But because it's fashionable, you convince yourself you look good. Now, what's happened is fashion has taken over, and the problem is that it's been going on for too long because of the economy, and people can't afford to have their hair cut as much, and salon visits, and people are forgetting how to cut shorter hair. And we have a generation, about 4 or 5 years, of hairdressers that have now grown up and qualified that don't know how to cut shorter hair, and they don't have the confidence to. Mm-hmm. The barbers have been very clever, because the barbers have jumped in and said, you know what, guys, we're going to get all of your clientele and we're going to fade them all off, and they've reclaimed their clientele for the last 40 years that they lost, getting their revenge. And hats off to them, they've done amazingly, because we're not cutting men's hair how men's hair should be cut.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, the art of cutting hair will be lost. And if we only have a small window left, and fashion is not going to help us, and the economy is not going to help us. Hairdressers are the only people that can help us to do this. Because if we don't start pushing the boat out to make some diversity in hairstyles, and getting some more education to do these hairstyles, then hairdressers are going to become pretty much long hair trimmers. So we've all got to try a little bit harder. We've got to do our research. We've got to encourage clients to have their hair cut. Go to a bob. I'm sick to death of hearing bob, but a bob is better than nothing at the moment.
Yes.
And from a bob, maybe some layers, maybe a fringe, and then we can start getting back into maybe some width, God forbid some width, and some shape, and maybe even a hairstyle, maybe something like a wedge or a stack or something like that again.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So before we move on to the other slides, I'm so curious about how you did this lovely, it looks like a rope effect. It looks like a crop. So the crop silhouette with this incredible texture. Talk to me about that.
Well, part of my agenda for doing my collections was always to add something in there that was slightly avant-garde, slightly long hairy, but also something that was still quite compact and editorial. And we were playing with these plaits, just plaiting away, and then we started to create these mounds on the hair, and then I started to flatten them, And before we knew it, it just kind of covered most of the head. And then what we decided after that was how amazing would that be? Because it's starting to look a little bit like a brain. It's the colour at the side, the kind of colour of a brain. So it took on this name within our team of the brain. And those are the kind of things that inspire me to do things, because the brain is an incredible material, incredible looking object. And that was what made me go for that.
It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love it. And as we go through the rest of your images here, I want to just tell our friends that we are going to start doing some hair in a moment. And I hope these images are inspiring you, because when we browse through Instagram and we look at all these different images, it's great to look at them, of course. It's great to start harvesting sort of your own mood boards, because whatever you look at and what you focus on will expand. And it's important to understand how to build your brand. And obviously, when you look at these amazing images, they have a very distinct brand and they are unique, which is super exciting, because that's how a brand should be. So that's why this is so successful. So I want you to look at this and go, okay, this is amazing. But what's more important, when something captures your attention, don't skim through it, dwell, look. Success and mastery isn't a microwave experience, it's a marination. And when you find something that you like, stop, get out that mannequin head, get out a relative and recreate it, because until you recreate it, you don't know if you can do it. You're just an observer. So my question to you is, do you want to be an observer of life, or do you want to be a participant? And when you see this work here, and when you hear Akin speak, you can hear how much he participates and how passionate he is. So talk to me about these really cool hairstyles here.
The one on the left is one of my favorites. Just the fact that it tucked behind the ear there. It was meant to be kind of bobby, and then all of a sudden we tucked it behind the ear, and it just went wow. You know, it was hair with movement at the same time as being quite strong. And the movement is important in hair, because it creates a femininity. It's soft, it's beautiful, and I just love that shape. And it's a flat top with a couple of long bits and then tucked behind the ear. Now the one on the right, on the other hand, was one of the craziest haircuts I've ever done, but still crazy enough, but suits her, and she still looks beautiful. I don't believe in doing shocking hair. I believe in doing hair that pushes the boundaries and the limits of the tribe that person belongs to. And she's in the tribe of, look at me, I can get away with this. You know, she owns her own barge. She's a single mum. She's a free spirit, and she's not held back. And you know, when you get somebody like that, then enroll yourself in being a part of that tribe. Even if that's not you, it doesn't have to be you. You have to be a person of many understanding different tribes and personalities, and give people what it is that's going to make them be who they really want to be. I don't believe in cutting hair. I believe in creating characters. I think that everybody that sits in your chair does not want you to cut their hairs. Nobody wants you to cut their hairs. Nobody needs their hairs cut. No one's hairs are too long. If you ask them how long their hairs are, they won't know. But what they want is to be a sexy beast, to be a punk rocker, to be somebody that's really high fashion, to be somebody very classical. They're giving you a character. And then you have this character where you then have a choice of different looks for that character, because within every tribe you have different extremes. And extremes are really important, because if you don't, I think in extremes. I think 0 to 10 on pretty much everything, because if you're not thinking 10, you're missing out. And if you're not thinking 0, you don't know how bad it can be. So you don't know how good it can be until you know how bad it can be. So you need to be aiming for what's the best possible outcome. Absolutely. And then you want to go average, well, you know where 5 is. But unless you know the scale, the spectrum, you can't choose. You just get what you're given.
And you know what I think for our friends watching? We can all see amazing work that's better than ourselves, the same as ourselves, and worse. We can all go out to Instagram and feel the pressure of, oh my gosh, I don't have that following. Oh my gosh. And we can compare. And while it's important to have awareness, your biggest competition is with yourself. Yeah. And you know what? You'll feel a sense of peace when you say, it's lovely to be inspired. It's lovely to be around people that are so much cleverer than me because they will inspire me. But I need to be the best version of me. And when I'm me, I'm competing against me, and I'm only as good as the last hairstyle I did. I want you to think for a moment, is this intimidating for me, little Viv, having these incredible hair heroes sitting in my presence? No. Am I starstruck? Yeah, because I love these guys and girls, but I'm in awe of them and I admire them. And I know that they have influenced my life. They will continue to influence my life, but I know that I need to be the best version of me because there's only one crazy Viv out there, and I just need to make Viv as good as possible. So I can detach myself and enjoy their success without envy, without jealousy, because that will eat away at me. And I want for all of you watching thinking that may think, oh my gosh, I'll never be as good as Akin. Oh my gosh, I'll never do that. Well, you know what? You don't see how hard he works behind the scenes. You're hearing a lot today, but he has worked really hard. There are a lot of cosmetology students that are watching today. Did you hear the amount of hours practicing? Don't rush to try and get through school. Don't rush to get through your apprenticeship program. Salon owners say to me today, oh, well, Viv, they don't want to spend a year in an apprenticeship program. So what you're actually saying is you don't want to be that good. You want to be really average, you don't want to make great money, and you don't want to enjoy your journey. And, in the UK, the average is 2 to 3 years. Yeah. And in some countries, it's even longer than that. Take as long as it takes. Some people are fast learners, some people are slow learners. But one thing for sure, and I hope you're hearing it today, is the mindset of a master. And I would say that this would be true, and I think you'll relate to this. Mastery is very misunderstood.
I agree.
It looks easy, right?
Yeah. I mean, what you said, Viv, actually, I've been trying to articulate how I feel about this thing that kind of embarrasses me sometimes, where I've always said, ever since I was a junior, I've always said, I'm the best. And I find that quite embarrassing and that's why I kind of skimped it when we kind of played with it earlier at the beginning of this interview, because that sounds very arrogant. But actually, of course, I didn't think I was the best. But what you just said actually resonates with me, that actually I was the best that I could be at that point. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And now the thing is, if you decide that, if you become envious of other people's standard rather than absorbing and being blessed by the potential that you could learn from them, then that's it, you've arrived. And guess what happens when you arrive? It's over. It's finished. Mm-hmm. When you get the answer, when you get to your destination, journey's done. Now, I don't believe that journey should ever be done, because once you get the journey done, then you're in trouble, because then you can only go backwards. All right?
Well, Anthony said something brilliant. Anthony Moscolo said that once you climb that ladder, and Trevor Sorby said this too, once you climb that ladder and you've reached that peak, then you've got to reinvent yourself because you've reached that peak. So now you've got to go off and do something else and find another peak, which I think is so very important. And yeah. I think also it's about, we all have jealousy and envy. It exists in every single human being and in every single salon, and it seems to permeate in every single staff room. Yeah. But when you turn that into being inspired, your envy should be, I want to be inspired by this person. So instead of resenting them, I'm going to shadow them. I'm going to learn from them. You take something you were resistant to, and now you're embracing it. So with that said, we're now going to show you some hair. Are you ready? Do you have your mannequin ready? I got mine here.
I do. But Viv, I just want to say that how much I agree with what you say, and fantastic. I do. I believe that if you, instead of being jealous, if you learn from that person, your jealousy will fade away, because then you're grateful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So we do have an amazing video clip of this particular look that Akin did, which is so inspiring.
Today we're doing a special front cover with Akin Konizi from Hobbs Salons, who's HJ's current British Hairdresser of the Year. We're doing a special front cover to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. So it's our 4th of June issue, and it's going to be celebrating all that is great about British hairdressing.
The brief was to go for something that looked a little bit vintage, possibly. We discussed what kind of look we wanted to put out, but what I didn't want to do is recreate the 50s. What I want to do is have our version, a modern version of that. So I've put a very strong shape in with our geometry that was current in the 50s, but with some length and some softness. And the model, I think, is amazing. She just looks like she's just come straight out of that era.
Union Jack flag in the background to give it that kind of British feel, and then the hair and the whole theme of the whole shoot is 50s inspired to obviously celebrate the Jubilee, but with a very modern twist and a very Hobb and Akin twist to it as well.
Well, we came up with a fantastic idea today. We've got the Union Jack in the background, so that's got red, white and blue, so we couldn't decide whether to go red, white or blue. So in the end we decided to go for all three. So we managed it somehow. We've got a great blue outfit, great white outfit, great red outfit. So that's 3 different covers, so that'd be really good.
Akin's going to teach you how to do this look, and I was like screaming, going, oh my gosh, that is so amazing, because I love that look. So I'm super excited that we're going to do it today. So you've got your lovely girl there. So I'm going to be a humble student and learn from the master. And I got my little girl. I just want to let everyone know mine's a wig. And I thought it'd be really cool to show you on a wig, because sometimes you can't get a model to wear that hairstyle. And hey, what about a client that would just like to have fun for a day? You know, these ladies that want purple hair but can't have purple hair. Why can't it be a wig? So just open your mind to new possibilities. So over to you, my love.
All right, okay. So I don't often cut blocks. I believe that we need to cut as much real heads as possible, because I don't believe in cutting hair. I believe in cutting heads and cutting people. But the blocks are getting better, I must admit. And hairline's pretty good on this. But I've got to tell you, I am pretty slow, so I'm going to get cracking on. Jake, my assistant here, is going to... Jake, get me some clips and stuff and a water spray. So what we've done so far, and Viv, well done, you did this from the brief earlier, even without me telling you, is we've cut the back already. Okay? And that was something, we did this haircut, I did this haircut in 2012. And I was just, she had an undercut that was growing out the model. And I thought, rather than growing it out, why don't we use it? But we'll explore that further as we go on. So the back area, we're just going to clip out of the way.
And when you did the back area, did you actually put any graduation into that underneath, or is it a one length line?
It's slightly reverse graduated because of the hair type.
Okay.
It springs up. I've reverse graduated, which means that it's got slightly longer on each section, because as you know, with the blockheads, it does a lot of shrinking and graduation. And you know what? Technique should be used for whatever you need it for. So it's not a rule that you should use reverse graduation. It will depend on what you want to see. But if you're getting too much graduation, either have no graduation or have reverse graduation. But that's your spectrum of what you choose to have.
Okay. And just explain to our younger stylists what reverse graduation is. They may not understand that.
Yes. Turn that around a bit, Jay. Reverse graduation, when you have graduation, sometimes graduation is something that happens because the hair shrinks. Now that's fine, but if you don't want it, then you need to combat that. And the way to combat that is, rather than cutting to the same line, you cut slightly longer than the line on each section, which means that when the hair shrinks, you get a one length look. So reverse graduation is pretty much the combat of graduation.
Yes.
Which is how I like to explain it now in 2020, as opposed to in 1980, when it was much more complicated and difficult to understand. So in my 40 years of hairdressing, what I've tried to do is change things so that they are more understandable. All right?
Yes.
So I'm going to go from there now, Viv. We're going to go over to the sides. Okay?
We're doing the sides first, the fringe last.
Yes. So what we're going to do, though, before we do that, is we're going to put our sections in. So actually, what we'll do is we'll put our fringe section in first of all, because actually there's a lot of learning in the fringe section, because the fringe section, for me, is quite different to how a lot of people cut. And the fringe needs to be in the fringe area, okay? Because if it's not in the fringe area, you end up with, you know those girls I was telling you about, the 14-year-olds?
Yeah.
That cut a fringe in, and they don't cut it in the fringe area, they just cut it in the front of their head, and they cut it themselves in the bedroom, and it's not a very big fringe, it's just a little one. Let me show you what I mean. So what happens is little Maisie goes up to her bedroom, cuts her own fringe, and she cuts a small one out in the middle there, like that, because she's a bit scared. And then what she does is she then starts to push it out to the sides. So she gets a fringe which is like 5 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that's what happens. But in reality, a fringe needs to be at least to the recession area.
Yes.
If it's in the recession area, then it will fall in the right area of the face. And the recession area is there, which means that it falls down into the face.
Yeah.
There. So fringe area, clip that out of the way. Okay. And then go over to the sides. Ready, Viv?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So what's left after you've put the fringe area in, and that's a triangle that works in a natural fall, that will fall into that area of the front, into the fringe area. Then you've got these 2 side bits at the side, which will then fall into the side area. So you've got fringe area, you've got side area, you've got back area. They're all areas. Okay? And if you don't cut them in their correct place, then they won't fall properly.
Yeah, and you're right about the scary fringes. Have you seen that adorable video, that lovely Asian lady that cut her fringe too short?
그러면은 잘 맞게 이렇게 어머머머 이렇게 지랄 어떡해 어떡해
And you know what? You were speaking about, you know, all the cute fringes, and we were speaking about you were definitely one of the first ones to bring short fringes back in on trend. But actually, there's a confession here. At the age of 4, Akin,
Yeah.
I pioneered short fringes that no one followed. Of 4 years old, I cut my own fringe, and it's the cutest little fringe.
I want to see that picture.
I look ridiculous, but anyway, no one followed that fashion. So you do still have the claim to bringing back short fringes.
Well, you know what? Often these fashions are made accidentally.
And also, my mother was like a frustrated hairdresser. She wasn't a real hairdresser, but she was frustrated, and she put these horrible hairstyles on me. And I used to go to school with a ginger donut stuck on top of my head. It was horrible.
Oh, wow.
It was horrible. You know the donuts that we use?
Those things really damage you, you know, in later life.
I know, I'm scarred forever. I was a nerd.
I
No
was
one was a nerd at school.
Yeah, I was sent to school, and we had a PE class, and I had red tights on under my trousers, and that's definitely scarred me for life. My sister's red tights. It was amazing.
All right, we're going to do the Sides first.
We're going to go to the side.
Okie dokie.
Okay, so we're going to bring that down with a minimum, not a minimum, a medium tension, and just slightly cut an A-line triangular longer in the front, and cut it till it's too long. Always cut it so it's a little bit too long.
And do you always cut through your fingers, or will you ever just start your bob line by cutting through the comb?
I don't like cutting through the comb, but I do.
Okay.
I don't like eating Chinese food with a fork, but sometimes I do. I will do whatever I need to do to get the best result.
Okay.
So sometimes it works best in the comb, sometimes it works best in the finger, and sometimes it works best. Another really nice method is you put it in the comb and you lift it and you pull it back. So yeah, I don't believe in anything being set in stone, because there's always room for a better way.
Okay, so therefore what you're saying is always read what's appropriate for the person who's wearing it.
Yeah.
Where's your focal point? Is it the jawline or the cheekbone?
The cheekbone.
Cheekbone. And you're angling your fingers slightly down, correct?
Because what that will allow for is this really nice C-line where this gives this classic turn in the front where this curl is beautiful. I'm always looking for the sexy bit.
Yes.
That's the sexy bit. Now, if that was straight, then it would just be a hairdresser's line. I don't want a hairdresser's line. I'm about it, the model looking beautiful, her hair looking beautiful, and it being a beautiful haircut third.
I think that's really important what you just said. Would you repeat that? Because I think everyone should write that down, what you just said.
Well, it's not about the haircut. It's about the person. She needs to look wow. And first and foremost, it's about her looking wow. It's about her hair looking wow. And then it's about the hairstyle looking wow finally. If you have to rely on your hairstyle on somebody that doesn't look good, it's not going to do very well, because suitability is the most important factor.
I agree. How do you teach good taste?
Very good question. I'm going to keep cutting though, because I'm very slow.
Yes.
I find that I like to see a little bit of the ear. Okay, I don't like to see people completely closed off around the sides. It kind of reminds me of a helmet. I like to see people have ears. If you've got beautiful ears or good ears, show a little bit of ear.
Okay.
If you've got beautiful eyes, show your eyes. Show the bits you got. It's like having beautiful legs, but you wear a maxi skirt. What's the point? Wear a mini skirt.
That's true. That's true.
Show those bits off. No one's going to be thinking, what a beautiful helmet or what a beautiful hairstyle. They might as well say, what a beautiful helmet. Same thing. It's about what a beautiful girl and what a beautiful hairstyle. Okay. So how do you teach taste? Everything for me has a formula. Okay. So what I find is sometimes you can talk yourself to your blue in the face, or you can give a person a set of directions that will enlighten them in time. Okay. So I have something that we call suitability, execution, and fashion. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that formula is stuck to, is adhered to, then more than likely that hairstyle that you've just done will be of good taste, good style.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yes.
Because you can't teach somebody style until they see it a lot of the time. You can't really explain it. You can't say to somebody like that's not really interested that you need to be watching lots of old films, you need to be reading lots of books, lots of references, you need to be watching lots of designers, and they don't want to know that. But if they start creating stuff that's not distasteful, they start to get the difference. Okay? So if they follow that formula of suitability, execution, and fashion in that order, then they'll start producing some stylish and successful work.
Absolutely. And I also think that you said something very important about developing, working on the character, and that lovely lady that had the barge and you did that very dramatic haircut, that fitted her character of who she is, and that makes a statement. And if one was very conservative and that client was sitting in the chair and you didn't have a great way of doing a consultation and discovery, then you were playing and a person plays it safe, they're going to lose that client by being boring. And a lot of people think, wow, if I did that on my client, they would freak out. Well, if you're that personality type, you're not. But if you're a different personality type, then you're going to embrace it. So I think that's a huge thing. So I can't go up and show her ear because I'm hitting my wig thing. So that's as far as I can go. Because look, so I can't. And you know what's scary about working with a wig is that there are wefts here. So as I pull on this, it's stretchy. So I have to be very careful that I don't stretch it. And for some reason, I've got a piece that's sticking out.
Well, Viv, that's what suitability is. You wouldn't want to give that lady this hairstyle because she's got a bit that sticks out, or she's got a bit that you can't cut into. And so her hairstyle will look best a little bit longer. And that's what's important, understanding hairs, not understanding hairstyles, understanding hairs and what they want to do to get the best out of them.
So it's in a way that what you're saying is that you're having a conversation with the hair. And I think this is a really important thing. Sometimes we're too chatty verbally, and we need to have a conversation with the hair. And for any youngsters watching that are a little nervous about cutting hair shorter, I think that one of the nicest things that you should do to give yourself permission is to be able to say to a client, listen, do a great consultation, but then be able to say to the client, listen, I'm now going to be talking to your hair, which gives you permission to be quiet. It gives her permission to just relax because she doesn't want to do small talk. And you can really focus so that you're talking to the hair. And that to me is really powerful. And then you can say, listen, if you have any questions, I'll stop and I'll talk to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to be talking to the hair because the hair is telling you if it's happy or it's not. And sometimes for us being chatty boxes, we get worried that we got to keep the conversation going and it takes us away from our focus, which is the hair itself. So I think that's a really important thing. Would you agree?
Viv, I so agree with you. It's like we've met in a different life. And I needed you when I was a bit younger, because how I would have explained that is I'm not here to be liked, madam. I'm here to give you the best haircut you've ever had, to stop talking.
You wouldn't have said that, would you?
Sometimes, yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
When I was younger, when I say I was experimental in where I worked, I was also experimental in the way, how I worked. I was at a point where I needed to know really what the point was of a client coming to you and how important it was. And I had clients that must have hated me. I'd keep them waiting hours.
Really?
They'd be screaming at the receptionist, screaming. And I'd be like taking my time, doing my haircut. Actually, I wasn't taking my time. I was doing what I needed to do with a client I was with. And when they came and sat next to me, I would say to them, excuse me, I didn't rush that last client. So that means I won't be rushing you. Okay? And then they would be fine. Now, that gave me a clientele that were really interested in having a wonderful haircut.
Yes.
Not a clientele that came for a chat.
And that's very important to determine what kind of clientele you actually want. And
some clients go to the hairdressers because they need someone to chat to. That's not me. I'm not there to be anybody's friend. Anybody wants to call me, text me after the haircut, fine. But you know what? While I'm doing the hair, no one's going to thank me for doing a haircut and me saying I'm sorry. I got so engrossed in our chat that I wasn't concentrating. Okay. A client goes to the hairdresser for one reason only. Well, mine do. To get the best haircut they've ever had. And I believe your clients do as well.
Yeah, and I think, it's the law of attraction. It's a mirror. I think if you're a social butterfly, you'll attract social butterflies, and you can keep it light, and that will be your style. But I think, to your point, when you are serious about your craft and you absolutely want to create the precision of your work, whatever that may be, you will attract a like-minded person who will gravitate towards you. So, I've been in salons. John Sahag salon in New York was an amazing salon, and what an incredible man, the late John Sahag. Wow. I remember going in there, and it was very zen, and it was just so peaceful. No one was talking, and everyone was focused on their craft. And you had this sense of, it was almost like a spa feeling because everyone was so quiet and it was just delightful. So again, as Akin said, in the beginning of his career, he shopped around until he found a place, obviously Hob being the home, that's his business, where he could shine. And you have to listen to your heart and ask yourself, where will I shine? Don't blame the world for not shining. You're responsible to find that place where you can shine. So
do not settle.
let me ask you something here about the bob. When you are cutting over the ear section and you're allowing for the ear, obviously if your client's got large jug handles, you're not going to do this hairstyle, but she's got decent sized ears. Are you applying tension, or are you allowing for the shape of the ear as you're combing through?
I'm applying an even tension. I don't like applying a minimum tension. If you're applying a minimum tension, that for me often kind of shows fear. I'd rather be in charge of that hair, and then I'll make it work. I wouldn't be doing the haircut at that length if it couldn't take an even tension. If it really needed to be completely minimum, then I wouldn't probably be doing it, because I often don't like a line without any tension because it's a little bit dead. Now, I say that, and I know a lot of hairdressers do like working without any tension, cutting through the comb and etc. And I'm happy for them. But my taste is I like to see a little bit of life in that line, just a slight graduation, a precision, as opposed to that looseness in the line.
Now, when you're matching your sides, like I'm a big one for using like focal points. So I've got it underneath the bottom of her lip here. When I do my second, this is something that's really interesting. For years, right, I would do I don't know why I did my left side first, but actually I'm right-handed. I now usually, not today for some stupid reason, I usually cut my right side first. And then once I've got my right side sorted, I then put my hand in and I feel the angle as well as the length of the hair. So when I'm holding my fingers in the angle of the side I've cut, I can then take with my left hand and hold that, because my left hand is my holding hand. I can then shape my fingers on my left hand to marry the shape of my fingers on the other side. And I found that does help me with the 40 plus years of struggling to make both sides the same. But I'd love to know for you what tips you have about making both sides the same, because especially on a bob.
I often work with inches as opposed to centimeters, and I'll go from the bottom of the ear as into how much that is, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, a centimeter, whatever, because I'll work more on the ear than I will, even though most people's ears are at different levels on their head, side to side. I like to balance it to the ears.
Okay.
Only because if someone says, oh, one of your ears are showing more than the other one, then the client's got to say to them, well, that's because one of my ears are lower than the other one.
Yes. Yeah.
Which isn't a great thing to admit to. So I'd rather he just said, oh, no, it's because my head's slightly at the wrong angle.
Yeah. Well, very few people do have ears at the same place.
No one's ears are at the same angle. In fact, most people's ears, the right ear is half an inch further back than the left ear. So my left ear, this ear, which is the wrong way around on the screen, is further back than this one. And most humans, I find that with.
This ear is lower than this ear?
Not lower, further back.
I got pixie ears.
No, further back. So
further back.
If your nose is the centre, this ear is further away than this one.
Oh my goodness. Is that your telephone ear?
There are lots of strange things about humans. And also, how many years do you cut this side here on a haircut? And the other side is never as good. And you blame yourself, and you always blame yourself. And you're like, years and years. But the reason why is because this side grows forward probably 6 or 7, 8 degrees further forward than that side.
That's interesting.
So this side grows beautifully forward, and that side grows a bit more down. So it never looks as nice. And there you go, blaming yourself for your whole career.
Yeah, really. And do you generally, when you cut your second side, do the very first section a whisper longer and climb up?
Yes, I always tend to cut everything a tiny bit longer because I'm a little bit of a maniac and end up with everything really, really short otherwise.
Yes.
And, I learned to leave things a little bit longer because it gives you a potential for more variety of hairstyles rather than just cutting to where you know to cut to. Give yourself that chance.
Now, how many times when you're designing something, you have a plan, and I'm talking about, these amazing images that we saw today, you have a plan for what you're going to do, and then you go off maybe in a slightly different direction because you get inspired along the way?
Always. You have a plan, but your plan should be at 70% commitment,
Yes.
70% final, and then you need to then work with the hair. Especially if it's the first time you've cut that person's hair, how would you possibly know what's going to look best until you start cutting? So,
Yeah, I love when you said that. I remember you said that in our interview, that the first time of cutting someone's hair, you're obviously using all of your judgment, but the second time it's going to be a very different experience because you do know. And I love that statement, because I think we often can be very hard on ourselves and beat ourselves up and say, oh, I didn't do a good enough job and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I mean, cutting someone's hair for the first time is very difficult. You have no idea how it's going to react, and you need to cut it with that in mind when you're cutting it, that you need to leave it a little bit longer so you can allow. I mean, how many people go to the hairdressers, including yourself and myself, and say, for God's sake, why did they have to cut it so short? It's so short.
Yes.
And it's normally because the hairdresser hasn't judged the fact that the hair shrinks, gets smaller, or they cut safely that they can see their guideline a lot of the time if it's shorter, or just the fact that they've misjudged it. Whereas, you know what, no one's going to really tell you off for leaving the hair a tiny bit too long, and you then progress it the next time.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Great advice.
I'm onto the fringe. Where are you?
I'm just finishing my other side, saying to myself, it'd be really lovely if I could make both sides the same. I've got one more piece to do.
Okay.
So basically, to sort of summarize this, you've cut it through your fingers so you get a little bit of spring on the line.
On a block, yes, that's the right thing I would do here. On human hair, it would depend on the hairline. It would depend on the hair type. It would depend on the hair of that person. Sometimes I'll cut it in the comb. Sometimes I'll cut it with reverse graduation. Sometimes I'll cut it with graduation. I am single-minded. I just want a beautiful line.
So let me, just before we go into the fringe, can you just talk to us about how you determine balance on this? Because we've got a couple of things going on, haven't we? We've got our little short piece, we got our short piece here, and I went as close as I could do on mine because of it's a wig, guys. And I don't know, this wig must have been designed for somebody with the most massive head, because it's really quite big on my dolly. But anyway, how do you balance this and this so that it looks as amazing? Let's just remind our friends where we're going, as this image here, because this is where we're going, guys, and it's absolutely stunning. So how do you find balance?
Well, first of all, the angle of the line is the first and most important thing. So if it's too long, then the whole thing needs to be cut again. That line needs to be cut again. Because otherwise, what people make the mistake of is just cutting the bit that's a bit longer. And then you lose the shape of the line. So the line is beautiful because of the shape of it. So if it's too long, the whole thing is too long. And then after that, you just look at and see if they're in the same place. And it doesn't have to be to the millimeter exactly the same. It just needs to look exactly the same.
Yes, I think that's really important.
When you start pulling at it and doing all this and pulling and pulling and pulling, forget it. What's meant to happen is that it's meant to look the same.
Yeah.
Who knows if it is the same?
Well, you know what, too, when you get a client, his shoulder is up higher on one side than the other.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing. Do you know how many clients I've actually helped with, you've got to go to the chiropractor because did you know this shoulder is higher than this shoulder? And they go, oh my gosh, you were right. And they had themselves adjusted and they came back the next time, yeah, the shoulder's up.
I will never forget, I was a junior and I was at reception and a client was leaving the salon. And as she was leaving, her fringe was, it was all over the place. It was like that, all up. And the instructor, because it was at the academy, called the student and said, can you just have a look at what you've done to that lady's hair and just fix that? And as they walked up to her and said, excuse me, madam, she's done something with her face and it all went straight again. So it was really odd. So she must have been walking around out there or something. I don't know what she was doing, but it was really odd. And that taught me that actually you want the person to look good when they're comfortable. There's no point in perfection is an infliction. I used to be a perfectionist and I'm cured now.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so talk to us about this fringe. And, I noticed that this fringe lifts up a little tiny bit. So I call that a happy fringe.
Yeah.
Because it's smiling a little tiny bit.
Right. This is how I cut most fringes. I never always do anything. Although there are things I always do, but I try not to say always. As soon as you say always, you're in trouble. You're not going to be developing. But most of the time, this is how I cut fringes. And what I do is I start on my favourite side, which is this side, on the client's left, which is opposite on screen.
Okay.
On the client's left, because I'm right-handed. And I take out a nice section through there, thick enough that I can see what's going on. Okay? And I clip the rest of the way. Can you see that?
Yes.
Let me just turn that around. So I take a sliver to just past halfway. And I take away the side. And what I do with that is make sure that the hair is evenly damp. Okay? And then I will either cut in the comb or I'll cut freehand and I will cut the desired length. And this is quite a deep fringe. It's right into the recession. So I will cut, and then it's all about the eyebrows. Do you have beautiful eyebrows? Do you have beautiful eyes? What is your objective? I'll just cut across. And if I want a straight fringe, I'll make sure that the fringe is getting longer at the front. Okay, so it is dipping longer at the front if you want a straight fringe. You see that? So it's going slightly down because fringes tend to shrink up in the middle.
Yes.
Okay, so
and remembering hairlines, that's another important thing, isn't it? To check your hairline.
Yeah. But if you want a straight fringe, cut it so it's slightly angled down.
So then this kind of follows almost the idea of when we generally cut a square bob, we start in the back first to work towards the length in the front. And here working at the side, you're preserving the length in the center at the nose. It's kind of the same idea in a way, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Because you have to, the definition of madness is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if you've been cutting hair for 20 years and every time you cut it, the line goes round, then you've got to realise that something that you're doing needs to change or you need to take responsibility for what's going on, right? So if you cut a straight line and it ends up being round, then you need to cut more of a triangular line or a line that gets longer. Because ultimately, you can't say, well, it's not my fault. I cut it straight, madam. I can't help it that it's coming up now into a page boy. Well, that is your fault. You are responsible for that. So stop cutting straight ones and cut them so they're more triangular and more down. And then they'll straighten up and then they'll be straight. And that, I think, is one of the biggest things that I try to teach, to take responsibility for the finished look. If it hasn't worked, it's your fault.
Yeah.
If it's worked, rejoice.
Yes.
Credit.
So for my girl's face,
yes,
do you feel I should go higher than I've gone there, or do you like that balance?
Let me see. No, I like that a lot. It doesn't have to be exactly as mine or as the picture. It just needs to suit this lady. And your lady is quite gorgeous, actually.
She's got nice little cupid lips. You like the lips? She's pouted.
Yeah. And if her fringe will let you do that really nice kind of shape that's kind of cupped in, rounded in the middle or pointed in the middle. I call that a, what are those ladies? dominatrix fringe.
Oh, yeah. So then let me ask you this. From doing this side here, would you then go from your right side and go through a match, or would you continue going across?
No, I'm going to just tell you now, take your next section on top of that.
And have you done your left and right side?
No.
Oh.
You see that? Let me just see what's happening here. Okay, I haven't cut this side at all. I'm just cutting this side.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Okay, I haven't cut across. I'm just cutting this side.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to do the same then.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And why is that? Because I always go across because I'm so freaked out that I'm not going to be able to match it.
There's not enough hair yet to match the other side.
Oh, okay. There's not enough hair to match the other side. That's a good point. Okay.
Establish this side first of all.
Yeah.
Make this side a great side, and then match the other side. So then you're just continuing. And as you can see, I'm freehanding this as opposed to in the cone, I'm in the cone now. But if you don't need to use a cone, don't use a cone because that fringe is a bit jumpy.
And I see very often, like on videos, you'll be cutting a fringe even against the skin. Like you'll put your hand down and you'll be literally cutting against the skin. I know on a mannequin it's hard to do, but you do that quite a lot, don't you?
Yeah. I love fringes. I think that they're a fantastic challenge.
Yeah.
And you have to play with what you've got and make it work because ultimately you're responsible for if it worked or not. I love that responsibility of, has it worked? If it's worked, I did that. If it hasn't worked, why hasn't it worked? And how do I stop it from doing that next time?
Yes. Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
If you then go, it hasn't worked, it's not really my fault. She's got hair like a horse, or she's got a jumpy hairline, or I don't really like her anyway. I want to come back anyway. You know, what are you going to learn from that? Nothing. If you don't take on the responsibility, you cannot take also the praise.
That's a really good point. A really good point. I want to just tell my friends watching, because I'm working on a wig, I'm working with wefting, and this was a very inexpensive wig. It cost me $28.
Wow, that's brilliant.
It's synthetic, and I put this color in separate from the wig. She didn't come like this, but because she's a very inexpensive wig, she is wefted. She's not hand knotted. So very often when I'm working on something really like major and important, I may invest a lot more money in a hand knotted wig, and that's much more expensive. So I've got to be very, very mindful because my little girl, she's jumping all over the place and she's got fuzzy roots. And you know, I don't know whether you ever do this, Akin. Sometimes I will use a mini crimp at the roots and a haircut just to give it some root lift and some movement. And I actually got the idea from working with wigs, because anyone who works with wigs, you'll notice that very often they've got crinkles at the roots, which gives it that little lift off of the scalp. And it's kind of a really cool thing to do. So wigs, as hard as they are to cut, they are also really good teachers.
Yeah, difficult hair. Yeah, difficulty is the best thing you could have. Things that are easy, you're going to learn nothing from.
So true. Okay, so what are we doing next?
Coming to this bit. So we've done this side, okay, and we've established that we like that, all right? So once you're happy with that, half a fringe done. Great. You now go into the other side and you just continue that semicircular section to the other side. Now, this is the difficult side on most humans, okay? Because this side tends to grow across more, whereas this side is a lot easier. And I believe that you should do your easy side first and your best side first, because then you match your not so good side to your best side. Now, the alternative to that is to do your bad side first and do your good side badly. So,
wow, that's a good point. I've never thought of it that way.
You do your first side shit, and then you do the other side bad.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
You've got something to aspire to. Now, when we go from this side, I then put my guide in on this side to just get my balance of the same as the other side. So I've got that, and then I put my balance in on the other side. Okay, which is about Yeah.
And then, of course, the big thing too, as you obviously know, is that eyebrows, we're talking about ears, but eyebrows are so different on people. They have like a happy side to their face and a sad side to their face. So that's where you're saying about don't get obsessed with the technical side, be much more visual.
Yes. But what I've done now is I've cut the other side, and I've on purpose cut it too long. Always cut it too long. Because if you cut it exactly the same, and the next thing you know, it's shorter, then you've got to cut the other side again.
I know. I thought I was the only one that was so kind of like scared and, well, not, I know you're not scared, but I am conservative, because I am scared that I'm going to ruin my second side and then have to cut my other side again. And I think that's a really good point for everyone to hear today.
Listen, I really hate upsetting people. There's nothing I hate to see more than a crying client. And I take it very seriously. I mean, I didn't realize until very recently that actually the best part of our job is seeing a client that is almost tearful that they love their hair so much.
Yes.
Because you could do the best haircut you've ever done, and the client says, I don't like it, and starts crying, and that's it. You have no pleasure in that haircut. You will not feel good about it. So part of our pleasure and the fix that we get as hairdressers is that wonderful feeling of someone saying, "My God, I love it. You've made me look beautiful. You've changed my life." All the things that they do not say, but you know they're thinking.
Yes.
Okay. Now that's the other thing. No one comes in and says to you, "Please cut my hair and make me look like a sexy bitch." Right? I've never say that. I've never heard one of them say that. But they all want it. Give me a trim. And what they want to say is, please, I'm feeling really old at the moment, or I'm feeling insecure, or I'm feeling, just not feeling good about myself. I look in the mirror and I think I'm getting old and haggard, and please, the reason I'm here today and the reason why I want to give you all this money is to make me feel better. They don't say that. They never say that.
But it's our job to understand that.
Yeah. I mean, so that is what our objective is when we cut somebody's hair, and I know that. And I'm a great believer in the objectives. I don't do anything unless I know why I'm doing it. Because if I don't know why I'm doing it, then how am I possibly going to be the best at it or the best I can be if I'm just doing it and I've got no target? I need to know where the bullseye is. And if my bullseye is to make people look and feel amazing, then I've got to know that that's what my objective is. If I thought that my objective was trimming people's hair, I don't think I'd be doing this job.
Well, I think that's a great attitude. I remember there being a great story, and I think what you just said kind of reiterates this point. There were three masons working on building what appeared to be a wall. So the person said, "What are you doing?" And the guy said, "Well, I'm putting cement on this stone, and that's what I'm doing." And then he asked the next person. He said, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm putting cement on this stone, and I'm building a wall." And then he asked the third person. He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm putting cement on this stone, and I'm building a cathedral."
Right.
Attitude.
Yeah.
One was just putting cement there, and the other one was building a cathedral. So that's what you do. You build cathedrals every day, and people feel that, which I think is also really important. They feel that energy. I'd like to ask you, when you're deciding on where this fringe should live, and you're looking at balancing to the face shape, what are your go-to ways of doing your check and balance to make sure that proportion-wise, again, and the suitability-wise, you're on track? How do you kind of use your imagination to go, okay, should it be touching her eyebrows? Should I be right by the hairline? How do you make that decision?
I look at what suits her. In the consultation, I will make my mind up as to whether that person needs to be open in the eyes or closed in the eyes. I'll play that. That is a shame we can't do it with the blocks, but my first 3 minutes where I don't talk to the client, is not a time for me to talk to her. It's about playing with her hair and looking at possibilities. And I will play around with that hair until I see wow. And when I see wow, and wow is relative, by the way. Wow is not a beautiful, most beautiful girl in the world or most beautiful guy in the world. Wow is relative to how beautiful that person looks. If you can get the best out of that person, all of a sudden they stop looking like your auntie and they look like this glamorous, editor of Vogue, for example, you can do that in a hairstyle. It can be done. My God, it can be done. The things that we can do here is miraculous. It's unbelievable. We're almost as influential as hat makers, for God's sake.
Yeah,
now,
that's important. Yeah.
Imagine wearing the wrong hat. Imagine you're a beret person and someone puts a trilby on you. It's not going to suit you because it's hiding your eyes, it's hiding the face shape. These things on these people's heads that we cut are basically attire. They're hair. It's not living organism. It's a piece of clothing, and it's just a piece of clothing for the head.
Yes.
And if it fits and it's cut well and it lasts well and looks good in the morning, then it's Gucci. And if it looks crap in the morning and she looks terrible, then I'm afraid it's Primani. And that's it, and so however good you are at tailoring is how good you are at tailoring for people's heads. And then there's a designing as well, because you're designing as well as tailoring. So you're being a craftsman, but you're also being a bit of an artist. But I like artists to come second, because artists don't really need to take so much responsibility, whereas craftsmen need to make sure that what they create works. And as hairdressers, we have to not only tailor things, but we have to craft them in a way that they work, almost like a carpenter. I mean, you can call yourself a fantastic carpenter, but if your chairs fall and break after a month or they're uncomfortable, I'm sorry, you're not very good. So a carpenter is a craftsman, and that's what we are. We are craftsmen, and as good as we are is how well our styles will last and how well they'll suit and how well they'll look. And that's all in the detail.
So let me ask you this about the depth of the fringe, because that's a very important part about how far you creep back. We were speaking about, just having those little itty bitty fringes, which are a little scary, which someone's cut at home, but how far back you go, obviously how dense the hairline is for that client. When it comes to someone like me, my fringe is coming further and further back. Called old age. But how do you determine on a hairstyle like this how far back we should go in the fringe?
Well, it depends on where your fringe area is. There's a triangle area, and it's not exactly a triangle, but there's an area on the top of your head. For example, this area here, this triangle of hair. Can you see?
Yes.
That?
Yes.
Will fall in the front of this lady's head. So if it will fall in the front of her head, it's her fringe area. This hair here will fall to the side of her head. Now, what you can do is manipulate this hair to go over to the side, in which case, if she shapes her hair, she's going to have to fix it. Whereas if it's in the right area, then it will fall naturally, and you'll have a very simple hairstyle that will look beautiful, whatever you're doing.
Yes.
But that may not be what you want. You may want to have more volume on top, less fringe, and then it becomes a matter of taste. But the essence of the craft is you need a certain area to be allocated to that front area. If there's not enough, if it's not deep enough back, say you do a really narrow fringe, a really thin fringe,
yes,
you have that fringe, but this hair would always fall over the top of it.
Yeah.
Which is a style. It's a hairstyle, and that's okay as well. Ultimately, you have a few things that you have to be aware of. A, does it look good? Okay, and B, does it stay looking good?
Great points. Now, let me ask you, I know today is difficult because you're not in the salon environment, but how much when you're in the salon are you using your mirror?
Oh my God, I use my mirror a lot, as much as I can possibly remember. I've got Jake sitting here with his mirror holding this for me.
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah. Because he knows, you can't work without a mirror.
No, but a lot of people don't use their mirror.
Well, then good luck to them, because that's like trying to eat soup without a spoon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think your mirror is a tool. I think the relationship of the mirror is where you see the big picture. And obviously when you're close to your work, you're seeing the detail. But also too, I think there's something psychological too, that, and maybe this is a little bit more with our ladies. I'd like to just kind of address that as more, maybe it's a little bit more of a feminine thing, because we have a different relationship to a female client and rapport and confidence. But sometimes I think some of our female hairdressers are scared to look into the mirror because they're scared to see the look in the client's eyes.
Yes.
So if they close down and they don't look, they won't see that lady, because women are very good at reading faces. Like I can sometimes be maybe a little sad or whatever, and my husband looks at me and it's like he doesn't even read it. Meanwhile, a girlfriend will go, Viv, what's up?
Yeah.
A woman does. It's part of our DNA, part of being a woman. We do have a very good way of reading a face. We read a baby's face to see if they're uncomfortable, etc., etc. And sometimes gentlemen don't have that same wiring or that same sensitivity unless they've been in hairdressing and they've developed it, right? So, you can talk to a man that's in the computer world. He doesn't read a face as well as somebody that is like yourself. So I think that we also have to address that sense of security, that we look in the mirror with confidence, and you're brave enough to read that person's facial expression and not go, oh my gosh, I don't think she likes it, I'm not going to use my mirror. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are scared of looking at each other in the eye.
Yes.
And one of the exercises that I have with my educators mainly, but also with my students, depending on how familiar I can be with them, is I will pair them up and have them stare into each other's eyes for about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's very, very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very uncomfortable. And then it becomes more comfortable as the time passes by, because there are a range of emotions. There are times when people start crying.
Yes.
Because not only are they scared to look into people's eyes, but they're very scared of letting someone look into their eyes.
Yes.
And
well, it's the window of the soul, isn't it? That's what it is.
What you're seeing, Vivian, is not so much that people are scared to look into people's eyes, but actually people will not let people in. And so you read the signs to not look people in the eye because people are afraid.
Yes.
And I make it a part of my education that you stand potentially and look into each other's eyes. And I also make sure that I do that with my partner, Gosha, regularly. And my kids and anybody that I really care about and love, I will look them in the eye and I will teach them that one, because it's so important, because the trust is built by looking into somebody's eyes. And looking into somebody's eyes is very scary. You may see things you don't want to see. And they may show you things they don't want to show you. But once if there's a want for that to be passed, then there's a trust that builds. And I think it's such a shame. This COVID at the moment has damaged that. People are getting so good with hugging each other and kissing each other. And, it's almost like we're all Europeans now.
Yes.
We're all kissing and hugging.
Yes.
But that's started to go again. And I'm seeing people taking a wide berth as they walk around each other, not looking at each other, scared to look at each other, actually turning their face away in case they get germs.
Yes.
And that's going to have a profound effect on us again.
Yeah, it will. And I remember one time Vidal said to me, because I was always impressed with Vidal Sassoon, had such charisma. Yeah. And I was very fortunate to have a very special relationship with the man. And I remember that whenever he looked at anybody, he always looked with a tender eye and not a judging eye. And I thought that was huge. to look at your guests with tenderness versus judgment. And the other thing that he said, Viv, look at somebody long enough to recognize the color of their eyes. So that you look at them and you shake their hand with tenderness, which is charming and it's compassionate. And you look at them long enough to recognize, oh, they've got beautiful blue eyes. You connect, and it's really powerful. And it also shows confidence, and it also shows trust. At the end of the day, I think we must always remember the reason the client's sitting in your chair is that they're sitting in your chair because there must be a degree of trust. Otherwise, they'd be sitting in somebody else's chair. Now, whether they return to that chair is a secondary thing. So I think that's, again, very, very important.
Well, a haircut is not finished until it's blow dried. It's cut, and it's cut at that point to that level, but then you've got to dry it. And then a haircut is not finished once it's blow dried. The haircut is not finished even when a client leaves a salon. If you have to chase that client down the road because you see it's not working, it's not finished until it's finished. So the blow dry is really important. And you know what? Most of the time your hairstyles, believe it or not, by the next day have changed drastically. So not only are they not finished until they're blow dried, they're not finished until they're woken up from as well. Because for me, it's about how a haircut lasts that's important, not how a haircut looks when it leaves the salon. It has to look good when it leaves the salon, but really it has to look great in a day's time, 3 days' time, a week's time, especially after it's been washed once. Because after it's been washed once and your blow dries out, then that client's got to blow dry it herself. And it has to look good when she blow dries it herself.
Okay, I am tempted to strangle her. She hasn't been an easy client, but actually it's turned out quite well. I hope you like it. And it can also be worn also quite messy. Which is quite nice as well to bring it up to date a little bit more from 2012. Okay, still keep it slim. But there you go, finished look.
But who you surround yourself with is very important.
Oh, yeah, because human behavior is contagious. And I think that's the most powerful thing. I think this is an amazing, amazing technique and style. And original, so original. How cute when she puts it in a ponytail.
Well, that's what it's called. When she puts it in a ponytail, she gets a little bob. That's it. And you can't really see it there, but you can see it on that side.
Yes, yes, I love it.
Because then she can own it. It's hers.
Yes.
But what I look for, and this is important at the end of your hairstyle, is you need to appreciate your work. You could be finished now and get my next client shampoo, please, and that's no good. Now you need to stop. You've just spent all that time working on it, and now you need to look at it, and you need to process that and put it into your memory, because that is how you improve. Unless you have reference points of this haircut, you can't do this haircut better next time. You'll only do the same thing again and again if you only use process and technique. What gives you that style, which is what you were asking about earlier, and I'm learning an awful lot here with you, Viv, I've got to tell you, is you look at it and you say, wow, there it is. See that? For me, that is orgasmic. This curve here, this
I love that.
To see in the 70s from an S-Bob, the 80s, right? And that shape is what's beautiful. And I get my pleasure from that line. And when I look on this side, I think, nice, but not wow. How can I make that more wow next time?
Yes.
Okay? And that side does it. And what's the difference? There is no difference. To the untrained eye, there's no difference. But to me, there's a difference. And unless I make this side wow, I'm not happy. And that's why I continue to enjoy this industry.
And that's why you're so amazing. So, okay, so then this is what I've got, a dodgy side. My side, this side doesn't want to bend the same way as this side. So, when the client says, well, I'm not sure about that side, then I just say to them, well, just don't look at that side then.
Because both sides are beautiful, but you can see the difference.
Great style that you came up with. And I thank you for sharing the importance of how we create our bob line, the importance of how we determine the fringe, all these great tips. And when you did your one, just to finish, when you sort of did some freehand cutting to create your perimeter outline shape, is that what you did?
go through here.
Yeah.
What I did through this is I just picked it all up to a square layer and took the excess of the one lengthness away. So there's a slight layering in there.
Yes.
Chopped into it so it was slightly broken and slightly worn.
Yes.
And through the ends, I just, again, picked it up and just, with it being dry, visually looked at where it was too heavy and took it out.
Yes.
Because, again, visually it won't give me a perfection, but it will make it look perfect.
Yes.
Okay?
Fantastic.
Don't be bogged down with perfection, guys. Look perfect, don't be perfect. Do the technique correctly and then use it to make it look fantastic. Because we're in the job of making things look fantastic.
Yes, we are indeed. We are indeed. So I have a few more questions for you before we say goodbye to our friends today. So I'm going to say goodbye to you, my little girl.
Go, madam. For this one, I sent this block to my technician, Warren Budagians, last night and said, Warren, colour this hair for me. And I sent him this picture. And I presumed, of course, he'd colour it like that, right? But no, he didn't. He decided to get really creative and did something else. And then he was up all night, bless him, getting back to the original picture. But you know what? Colour is such an integral part, and it's so important to the finished look. It's like having a beautiful suit and it's the wrong colour. It doesn't work. So colour, very, very important. And I've only learned that in my later years of working with colour technicians.
Yes. Oh, I think so too. So what is your greatest fear?
In what? In hair or in life?
Let's do hair first.
The only thing that phases me is one of my biggest talents is cutting bobs, and one of my biggest fears is cutting the right side longer than the left side. Always. And I've cut thousands and millions, and still, always.
Do you know what I went through a phase when we started to do halos? I got an eyebrow pencil and I would do a dot and a dot, and then a dot and a dot and a dot and a dot. And so I would cut to the line and cut to the line. And I got them closer. But what amazed me was I would cut here to the dot, and then the thing would go up to there, like a jump, of course, right? And then I go, oh, so should I now do the same thing here? What if this doesn't jump the same? And I was so exact. So then I did it with a bob. I did a dot and a dot and a dot and a dot. And I was like cutting to the dot because I do exactly the same as you. I have the same challenge. Yeah. And I love bobs and I dread bobs. And it was like, oh my gosh. So I cut it to the dot and it's still different. And then to your point, what about just trusting your eye?
Yeah. That's when it comes out okay. And also, you know what, if it's a little bit longer, who's going to know?
And then when I was at Sassoon's, I was so obsessed with being so precise, as you would be. I was graduating in the nape of the neck, and the graduation went tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And I'd never used the mirror. And when she put her head up, instead of it sitting underneath the occipital bone, it sat here. And the front was down there. And she wasn't pretty. And she had big shoulders and a fat neck. And I remember when she walked out, it looked literally as though her head was falling off of her body. And I thought that day I would die. And that was the day when I said to myself, if you don't figure this out, you should just quit right now. But one thing you should do is look in the mirror, because that poor lady, and I scissor-combed so badly, I found out that there was a product called a mascara that had fibers in it. Right. So we went to the chemist and we bought the mascara, and I tried to fill in the hole with mascara fiber.
It shows caring.
I can. So what does drive your passion? We hear your passion, we see your passion, but what is underneath that?
You know, I use my ego. I like to feel good that I'm relevant. I like to feel good that I'm the best, even though I know that sounds so awful. I cannot find another word that suits it better, because that's what drives me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, as I said, I was the best hairdresser when I was 18. And I knew I wasn't, because I used to say I'm the best hairdresser except for John Wilson, Vidal Sassoon, Andreas Caracas, and that would be how I would kind of position myself. But what I didn't realise at the time was I was the best hairdresser I could be at that point that kept me motivated. I just can't see any other way of thinking about it. When I was folding towels, I was the best towel folder. You should see me sweep. I'm unbelievable. I take pride in whatever I do to do it the best that I can do it. And it will be anything, washing dishes. I can't think what I don't do that I don't want to be the best. It's not competitive because I don't want to beat everybody else. I just don't see the point of doing something without getting the pleasure, getting a reward.
So what would you say to someone who's got the spirit of laziness? They want it, but they won't put the time in.
I'd suggest they see a doctor, because you know what? Energy is everything. You have to find the energy. And if you don't have the energy, you're either in the wrong, you compartmentalize yourself in the wrong direction, and you're getting no drive and no excitement and no interest in what you're doing. Or there's something wrong with you physically or mentally, because there's so much to be gained from doing things that you can just switch on your switch and say, I'm going to love doing this. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's cleaning a drain. I'm going to clean that drain brilliantly. Otherwise, what are we? What do we do? So you need to find your vocation, I suppose.
Yeah.
But if you're lazy, you may not know the potential of not being lazy.
Yeah, but that's a good point. So what are your best 3 top tips for making the salon world a better place, especially today?
The salon world. I've been in those salons 40 years, and one of the things that is so much better than it was in the past is bitchiness. I mean, hairdressers have always been known for being bitchy. I don't think we've got that same reputation anymore. The bitchiness is much, much better than it was in the past. I think that team spirit where everybody helps each other and talks to each other, and a very simple thing like saying, wow, Johnny, that looks amazing. Or what did you do? That builds, because everybody helping each other builds that beautiful teamwork and nice feeling. You're with those people more than you are with your family. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I think there's also the fact that you guys need to socialize. You need to know each other rather than just go in, do your job, go home. That's a very short-lived experience, and you'll move on to somewhere else. You need to enjoy the people you work with. Hairdressers are the most wonderful people in the world. I'm not saying they're that amazing, but compared to other industries, ours is incredible.
Yes, I agree. And what are your kind of go-tos for motivating your staff? Would you say the core of Hob, obviously with your academies that you have, but the core of Hob is the education driver? Is that the thing that holds everyone together?
I have 2 partners, and their role, one of them is about service and one of them is about consistency. So we have, as I said earlier, I like these formulas, and I create these formulas. And the one that we run our philosophy and our mission statement on is creativity, consistency, and service. But I always put them in the right priority, in the right order. And there are lots of others, and they're normally in 3s because I like them in 3s. Creativity will keep a salon alive. Consistency means you'll keep those clients, and service means you're not being rude and it's good manners. Okay, but that only to that degree. We're not a Cafe Nero, and we're not we're hairdressers. So hair is the most important part of why people go to the hairdressers. Mm-hmm. I've always said this: you go to the butchers for sausages, and you go to the hairdresser for hair. So do great hair, and so education is key.
Yeah, you're right. So with that in mind, where do you see trends going? Because it seems like we've revived, and we've done the 80s and the 70s, and you and I, we saw it the first time around. Where do we go next?
I'm fearful for a lot of hairdressers, because I think that what's happening is something that I predicted when I was, I think, a junior. And I think I said one day people will have ponytails and crops, and that's all they will have. Because why would they have anything else? It costs money. It costs time and maintenance. Ponytails and crops are the go to evolution of our industry. The only thing that will stop that is fashion, because fashion will make people spend money on things they don't need, because fashion is so important to the human psyche. It makes you feel great. It makes you feel young. It makes you feel intelligent, makes you feel relevant. So we've got to stick with fashion, and we are allowing hair fashion to pass us by. We are allowing session workers and catwalk designers to tell us that long hair, and also we're allowing bloggers to tell us that beautiful long mermaid princess hair is the way forward. No, our industry will die. We have got to start cutting people's hair so they look better. You look gorgeous with that hairstyle, Vivian. You would not look gorgeous with mermaid hair, all right? Although you wouldn't look bad, but then you'd have no character, you wouldn't have no uniqueness, and that's what's missing. The focus has gone away from people's hair and gone on to their trainers and their skincare and their I don't know what. Well, hang on a second. We know hair is far more important than all of that, don't we? And
yeah.
back on that. Get people to realise that actually get yourself a bob and you will look stunning. Choose the right hairstyle for people.
Great advice. I love it. What has it? Oh, I don't even know how to ask this. COVID.
Yeah.
How has that impacted you personally and your business, and how have you had to reinvent yourself?
The first thing that upsets me is that I am just not cutting enough hair. I mean, I am a businessman. I'm not a hairdresser. I'm a 57-year-old man that is good at cutting hair, but I need to be good at business. So I'm a businessman first, hairdresser second. But I love cutting hair. And I've had to do so much business in the last 6 months. So many meetings and Zoom meetings and inspiring people and lifting people that are down. You know what? I just want to cut people's hair. I just want Mrs. Jones to be sat in front of me and say, I love my hair. And so it's made me realise that I am a creative more so than anything else. It's upset me how we've allowed this COVID to just destroy our industry. Of course we need to wear masks and we have to wear these horrible visors, but that doesn't stop us being creative. We need to unite as an industry, because I feel that we're being fragmented, and we need to develop our young, because they are growing up in a period where there's just not enough direction for them, and all they know is GHD curls and straightening and balayage and long hair, and they're not layering, and they're not doing men as much, and they're not taking chances. And this has only happened really in the last 3 to 4 years. But it scares me how many women out there, the public, are just giving in to the ponytail because their friends are. So it worries me. We may not have much of a window left to turn this ship around, because our industry is in big trouble. But I'm doing my best. I'm doing lots of chats and interviews and talking to youngsters, and we're out in our salons and teaching more relevant things. Whereas we were out teaching fundamentals to our staff for the last 37 years actually, where we're at now, as soon as we can get back out there in 2 weeks' time, is we're going to go back into our salons and give them some hairstyles ideas, because I believe that the youth and the salon teams, not even just the youth, they need to be reminded that there are more hairstyles, more to choose from, more choice for clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. Great advice. How do you do your consultation and work to face shape with a mask on the client? How are you navigating through that?
Great difficulty. A little bit of cheating. Walk back, say, take your mask down a little bit for a second, please. Okay, put it back up. Right, no choice. If I can't see because my visor's misted, I'll lift it up a little bit. I'll stand back. Listen, I'm a very responsible person, but my craft and my company is more important to me than playing by the rules. I don't necessarily play 100% by the rules. I play by what I believe is safe and our industry is in difficulty.
Yeah.
And you can't see somebody's hair necessarily through a visor and a mask, and they've got a mask on. So stand at the other end of the room.
Mm.
Have a
Do
look
you know
at
what? Do you know what I find also very helpful is asking the client to do a couple of selfies before she comes in for her appointment, and doing the consult to her photograph. And that's really quite fascinating too, because you're talking about her face shape and her balance, and you're really looking at that photo. Just like when you are working on a shoot and you've got the model there and you're thinking about the hair idea, she may not be physically in your space. So it's almost like taking that idea. And that has been very successful for me, just looking at their face. And if they don't have a selfie, it's like quickly go into the bathroom, take a picture, and we'll do a consult to that. That may help some of the youngsters as well. Final message of hope and inspiration for our friends today.
Well, listen, it's the shittiest time we've ever had in the history of most of our lives, but it will pass. And it may not pass painlessly, and it's going to be different. But if you're developing yourself and if you are of quality, you will survive into a new story, a new world. But if you're not very good, then you will fall away. And you know what? That may be the best thing for you, because maybe it was just too hard. You know, not everybody can be a colonel or a general, or some soldiers are a lot happier just doing what they need to do. And I think we will have a new world, and don't be afraid. Be careful, be responsible, look after the old people. But you know what? You need to keep developing your skills, and the strong and the best will survive, and there'll be a new balance, and it will be okay. And then we need to make it great again. It's not going to be great. It's going to be okay. And then we need to start getting it great again.
Amazing. Well, I thank you for all you've done for our craft, for your passion. I'm going to get emotional.
Oh, that's sweet. Well done.
Oh.
You know, it's people like you, Vivian, that need to keep talking to this industry, because we'll eventually be retired, and we need to bring up the next generation of people that pass it on. So keep doing it, please. You're doing amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I apologize for getting emotional, but you don't know how I've watched you over the years, watched your work, been inspired, taken your tears, tried to recreate something you've done, not done it very well. Just had such respect for what you've done, and for our world today, from the cosmetology students watching to the salon owners to hairdressers that are questioning, you know, in this crisis, where are the opportunities? I think you've given us an additional sense of hope. You've empowered us with your inspiration. I think we've got to understand what it takes to be successful, because you think differently to an unsuccessful person. And for that, I thank you, because you really have pushed the boundaries. Hob is an amazing company. Your academy, I know, is incredible. And I highly recommend to any of our friends, if you can get to London when it's safe, and go to Hob and check it out. Extraordinary company, as you can see. Thank you for all that you do. And I hope you'll come back.
It's been a wonderful interview. I hope to see you soon. Please come to London, come and see me. And all of you guys that are watching, come to us at Hob and just spend some time in our academy, just saying hello and watching.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, take care. And thank you for joining us today on Hair Heroes. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.